Okay, welcome back to the 34th episode of Tesla to Mars. Today we have a very special guest. He's called Cern Basher, and this is the first of many episodes to come because we're going to do a Robotaxi countdown until the Robotaxi starts rolling out in Austin, Texas. For today, we're going to start off with a video from Elon Musk about the transatlantic trade union, and then we'll dive straight into the episode, and Florian will be the host today of our session.
I hope that I hope that the United States and Europe can establish a very close partnership. We obviously are, there's an alliance already, but I'm hopeful that there can be a very close relationship with America and Europe. And I'm hopeful, for example, with the tariffs, that at the end of the day, I hope it is agreed that both Europe and the United States should move, ideally, in my view, to a zero tariff situation, effectively creating a free trade zone between Europe and North America. And that would be that's what I hope occurs.
All right, Florian and Demian, can you tell us what we saw just now?
Yeah, sure. In the video, he also talked that he suggested that to Trump. But one of the areas we are very passionate about, Cern, in this podcast is, let's say, the age of abundance, which is Tesla's new mission. We always had Tesla as a mission to accelerate the world to sustainable energy, and now it's working towards a sustainable abundance for all, which is, I think, more in line with the whole Musk economy that is being created. So not only Tesla, the Boring company, and all the companies within that realm. And I think this transatlantic alliance, a sort of new alliance between the US and Europe. First of all, I personally like that idea a lot, so I'm all in favor. But I think it's a big stepping stone towards sort of the golden era, age of abundance, and revival of the West that we're seeing here. And today, with a guest from overseas, we thought, well, let's already take a step into that direction and work towards working more closely with people across the world.
Yeah, so we're establishing our own transatlantic bridge over here. So thanks, Cern, for giving us the possibility to do so. For today, thank you for coming on. The last time we tried wasn't that successful due to technological difficulties from our end, not your end. For today, I want to give the floor to Florian. Florian will be asking the questions because we've looked at a lot of your content. We've assembled some questions which we think are the best questions we could have asked in limited time. And it will circle around a couple topics. So the first topic will be Robotaxi fleet operations and investment strategy. The second topic will be a little bit more about Robotaxi unit economics and the business models. The third topic, Tesla's competitive position and future growth. And the fourth and final topic, in our eyes, is the most fun topic to discuss. And that's the Robotaxi revenue strategy, community governance, and Demian also already mentioned it, the age of abundance. Mm-hmm. So, Florian, the floor is yours.
Maybe before we go there and just touch a little bit upon the point where we started, Cern. So we're trying to create a bridge from the US to Europe. We have a lot of European followers and a lot of engagement with European followers. Can you more or less paint us a picture from your point of view of like what's happening with the tariffs? Because here in the Netherlands and in Europe, it's fairly much driven by the mainstream media. So I think it would be good to get some input from somebody directly with I would say, crisp view on a lot of things that are happening in the world.
Sure, yeah, I can attempt to do that. Let me also first add that we also have a trans-Pacific partnership going here today as well. I'm a New Zealand citizen. I grew up in Canada. I've lived in the US now for 30 years, so I'm a citizen of 3 countries. So let's extend this transatlantic partnership to the Pacific as well.
Great,
But
all in.
yeah,
Hello,
New Zealand is a
people in
nation.
New Zealand.
New Zealand's often a nation that's left out of discussion, so I'm forcibly including them here in this discussion today. Sometimes it's easier actually to see things clearly from outside the nation that you're in. So I'm curious about your guys' perspective on this whole tariff situation. But my perspective is that, this is something that Trump has been thinking about now for 40 years, right? Now, people might question his ability to think deeply about this stuff, but make no mistake about it, he's been talking about trade imbalances now for 40 years. He was on the Larry King show, basically 40 years ago.
Oprah Winfrey as well.
Yeah, right. So, this is an issue to the extent that tariffs and, more importantly, probably non-tariff trade barriers of all different kinds. And there's a 4-page list of the different types of non-tariff trade barriers that nations can throw at each other. And by the way, the U.S. is guilty of this as well. It's not like we don't throw up non-tariff trade barriers to all kinds of nations. We have a system of trade in the world right now that's far from free. Right, every country has carved out all kinds of protections for different types of groups, and so this, I suppose, is Trump's attempt at trying to address that. Will his strategy of making the world deal with this all at once, will that work out, or is this too big of a lift? And I think that remains to be seen. I think most of us believe that Trump is, a deal maker. He's made deals before. He's renegotiated the U.S. free trade agreement with Canada and Mexico in his first term. In his eyes, made that better. And so, how far is he willing to go with this? I think is the question, and I don't have the answer on that.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
For me, it's I think also the tariffs are sort of one of the levers that Trump is pulling. I also think that Elon is very closely involved into the thinking in this thing. Otherwise, you would not have Elon talk about this on this Italian event. And Elon was already like meeting world leaders over the last 4 years, right? So he was a little bit pre-rolling himself into this position already. And in our podcast, we also followed initiatives around Doge very closely. And we talked about Doge being a sort of flywheel of 5 pillars.
Demian, we'll touch to the flywheel later on because we have it structured in the comments. It's a very good topic, so it's not to steal it, but I would love to give the stage to Florian to start diving into the topics, and then Doge will be amongst one of the talking points. Okay?
Cool.
Florian.
Yeah, well, thank you, Kees. I think we're still in the introduction round. We would have loved to introduce you and invite you to our Oval Office, where we normally sit, but due to technical reasons, we are not able to do that. But I thought that was a kind of a good way to actually build the bridge already that we're trying to create. I was actually born in Venezuela, so I'm South American by heart, and by head and by my parents, I'm Dutch. So I also would like to call me more of a global citizen than a European. I think you guys touched upon something that Elon is talking about, Trump is talking about, tariffs for 40 years. I think it all started also with Reagan. He also started this conversation to get, in that time in the 80s, to get from this progressive 60s and 70s to the 80s. I think we are in the kind of similar kind of cultural shift where we go from more being woke to more right. So I think there are a lot of similar things happening in this world. And I just wanted to also explain a little bit about our background between Cern and myself. We approach each other on X, and it also shows the power of X. I think you send out a valuation of Tesla in a beautiful report, and I reacted to that. Thank you for this, and I used it for an inspiration in my management team to explain what the valuation could be. And you talked about a Tesla being worth 72K if Robotaxi arrives. So we started this discussion about depreciation and our current model, etc. And now we are here 2 years later, and we're having big discussions with our funders about residual values.
Mm.
And in 60 days, there's another paradigm starting where Tesla is starting with their Robotaxi, and residual values could be turned around completely. So we also discussed in that time that I went on a podcast with Herbert, and you watched that podcast, and you said, what an amazing story. I would like to learn more about it. And by the way, I love that you're building a Robotaxi fleet. And by the way, I already bought 75 Cyber trucks. So I replied, yeah, I also buy 50 Cyber trucks in private. So we are doing the same thing. And that shows the power of X. It's like there are totally different people around the world doing exactly the same thing and thinking the same. So it was a pleasure to meet you, Cern, in that time. And I think the last 2 years we have been back and forth a lot, trying to understand what Tesla is actually doing, and that Tesla is actually building a Robotaxi fleet. And we also discussed of maybe becoming partners in the US, so we could bring our knowledge of Mr. Green to the US and start together a Robotaxi fleet. So I think the core questions that we want to address here is around the Robotaxi business model. And this is going to be our first episode in what we will call our countdown to Robotaxi episode. So we will do like 10 episodes until June, all talk about Robotaxi. So we will be happy to have you more, and not only today, but we'd love to invite you for more episodes about this. So
Right.
if we don't manage to get all the questions answered today, we will have some other additions.
Florian, you're actually the first one that actually has already a fleet, and now we're waiting for the moment that it can wake up and become a Robotaxi fleet, right? So how is it right now for you to have sort of 5,000 Teslas under your belt, but still waiting for that capability? I can imagine that sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and think, when is it going to happen?
Yeah, well, we're already building this fleet for 10 years as of 2013. So I think patience is the core habit here, or the core value. And I mean, patience will eventually pay out big time when this future will happen. And I think we only need 45, 60 days, because we will see this future actually going to happen. So
and
I'm
is it
happy it's 2025.
Is it 100% of your fleet that is capable of FSD?
Yeah, well, according to my theory, I think it's capable. According to Kees' theory, it's not. We're still having this discussion about whether V3 is also capable of becoming a Robotaxi, yes or no. What's your picture on that, Cern? Do you think V3 is capable of becoming a Robotaxi, or?
Yeah, hardware 3 versus hardware 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's highly likely that something will need to be done there with the hardware. But you know what? The economics of Robotaxi make it a slam dunk opportunity. You would spend several $1,000s upgrading the hardware, perhaps even the cameras if you need to, because the revenue upside is enormous. So whether it's capable on day one or not remains to be seen, but it will be capable in fairly short order. I think that would be pretty important for Tesla to take care of. And then Florian, just to comment on what you've built, I see you right now as having essentially 5,000 caterpillars waiting for the day they turn into butterflies. And I'm not sure if the logo on the Mr. Green on your shirt there is a butterfly, but it looks like a lot from here, like a butterfly taking flight.
Let's rebrand it that way.
And Cern, if you would assign a probability to the fleet of Florian becoming a robotaxi fleet at this point, what would be your probability?
Oh, I think Tesla has signaled a very clear intention about having non-Tesla owned vehicles in the fleet. They've certainly talked about individuals being able to put their vehicle in the fleet. And to me, then it makes extreme sense to have a enterprise doing the same thing. The nice thing about, Mr. Green, for example, let's say they're rolling out a robotaxi network service across Europe. So you would sort of start, maybe city by city or a few cities at once. When you start, you want to make sure that you've got enough vehicles in that market so that you can offer a proper service. And I think fleet operators like Mr. Green, I think, would be a great partner for Tesla in helping them roll it out, across the continent. Same thing here in the U.S. And so, that's really attractive, I think, for Tesla, because that's 5,000 vehicles they don't have to make, at least initially. Obviously, over time they're going to make millions of vehicles, but the larger the fleet and the quicker you get to that size, the better off it's going to be for everybody.
Yeah, it looks like that Tesla abandoned that idea a little bit of if operating them themselves and more sort of open sourcing that whole fleet management idea to entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and for me, that's a pretty obvious decision because the robotaxi model is so profitable. If Tesla doesn't share it, they actually open themselves up to all kinds of political attack. Right. So in the U.S., Trump is not going to remain in power forever. It's quite likely at some point the Democrats have a president, right? And so you want to make sure that you've got enough constituents benefiting from this new powerful business model. It's very clear to me when I run the numbers, the Tesla only model is the most profitable by far because they don't have to share the revenue with anybody. But from a political monopolistic standpoint, sharing that wealth around, I think, is going to be very important. And of course, with humanoid robots coming down the pipe, that's even more important in that scenario.
Yeah. I think if you look at the war chest now of Tesla as well, they have like 30 billion plus on the balance sheet, right? So they have some capital to deploy there, and I think it's better. There has been a lot of discussion around it of how to use that capital, maybe buy some stock, etc. But I think most sense makes to put it where it makes the most money, which is with robotaxi, essentially. Are you looking at it from the same point of view, sir?
Yeah, the capital expense of robotaxi isn't so terrible because the vehicles are going to pay for themselves in about 6 months, right? So that's not too big of a deal. When I look at my models, Tesla is going to have an abundance of cash flow pretty quickly after robotaxi is rolled out. I'm not in the camp that says that Tesla should start buying back stock today. I mean, certainly it would be nice for the stock price, but I think Tesla needs to make sure that they've got the financial resources necessary to invest in particularly compute.
Yep.
I think they're going to be spending a ton of money on that for the foreseeable future.
Yeah,
we have an interesting question about that as well, the compute later on.
And it also makes sense to open up this as a sort of business opportunity for people that are excited about this thing. If you look at the last 2 decades, the companies that have been winning, Alibaba, let's say FAANG companies, Apple, Google, Amazon, and they all sort of open up a sort of ecosystem for entrepreneurs where they can work with AWS, but also the Amazon store, Google with SEO, Alibaba with buying and selling goods, and I've been a Amazon seller for a couple of years, and I always thought about Jeff Bezos waking up every morning like, wow, how amazing is it that 1 million entrepreneurs wake up every day working as hard as they possibly can to actually grow your own business.
So in Tesla's case, that's a really good point. In Tesla's case, the Robotaxi network is a platform for other services. everybody's focused on, ride hailing. And that's the first use case, but it extends way beyond that to, package delivery and all kinds of other services that can be delivered on a robotaxi network. This idea of having like a mobile office, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Tesla, again, is like you said, they're going to want to partner with entrepreneurs that have different ideas about how to, put robotaxis in the world and offer additional services.
And we're still in the early innings of that. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many stuff that's still to be thought of. Like, you can think of some services right now, but I think once it gets up and running, then the creativity will flow.
Yeah.
You could have a bar on wheels,
Yeah.
right? You don't even
Like-
go to a bar anymore. You just have a vehicle and drink if you want to, and it could be a unique
Exactly.
experience, wine tasting experience or something, right?
That's the same
service
that
I am,
Robert Scoble said to us,
that I'm
Florian.
also- a service that I'm personally hoping for is that I can rent out my dog, so my parents can the dogs just walks in the Cybercab, has a big can of food there where he walks in and he gets delivered to my parents that they can walk him out. So
Self-doggy.
many crazy things will occur, and a lot of people talk about sort of Dojo as sort of AWS of Tesla, but this cyber cab and this whole robotaxi thing will open up so many opportunities for entrepreneurs all over the world. And I think that's to become at that scale, it's only possible when you have thousands or millions of entrepreneurs waking up every day and using your products and services to help their customers and grow together.
That's right. And I think the Cybercab is the vehicle that solves the transportation issue in terms of moving humans around. But the RoboVan is the one that truly opens up business opportunities on this platform. Right. You could have, wedding parties use the RoboVan. You could have kids use that instead of a school bus. You could have pop-up stores, pop-up restaurants, pop-up bars,
Food
all
trucks.
kinds of different things.
Yeah.
Food trucks, all that stuff. Yeah, with a larger vehicle. Yeah.
Are you more excited about that van or the cab, or is it a sort of equal big opportunity in your eyes?
Yeah, I'm excited about the entire platform and what that provides. I actually think that one day the transport of humans could actually be almost free, that Tesla and its partners will make their money on these other services.
Mm-hmm.
But initially, obviously, the rideshare part is significant. The revenue stream from that will be huge. But I think, like a lot of things, like when Amazon opened up, you couldn't have imagined what Amazon could become.
No.
And I think it's the same thing with this platform. We can see now some ideas. We're talking about some ideas that, what it could offer, but there's probably 1,000 things that we're not thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah, I also remember that story with Jeff Bezos when he bought a warehouse that was way too big for the capabilities or the things that Amazon had. At a certain point, they just had 1% of 100 of the space being used for Amazon themselves. So they approached Toys R Us to get in, and from there on, that whole flywheel of third-party sellers came across. And but that was also not like a very well thought out business move.
Mm.
It was just happened to become that way. And for me, we talked a lot about sort of technology adoption. So with software, for example, with WhatsApp, the adoption was like 2 years before getting to 1 billion users. But this business has a sort of big physical aspect in it, since it still has to be manufactured. Do you think to get to sort of enormous scales, Tesla will expand on their own capabilities to manufacture? But do you think there will be cybercabs from different brands at a certain point?
Yeah, I think if you would have asked me a year ago, I think I would have said I'm hopeful that other manufacturers will partner with Tesla in some way, and provide different vehicles and be a part of this. If you ask me the same question today, I'm less hopeful on that, which I suppose financially speaking may be better for Tesla, but I think it spells the likely death of many automakers, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Now, maybe it's not too late, but it's going to take a while, I think, for other automakers to engineer FSD into their vehicles. It's not just, you don't slap on the cameras and put the hardware in the car.
For most of
Right.
them, it will be too late already.
Yeah, and this is something we also talk about a lot. Is we have this thesis that Tesla is currently eating 100% of the profits of the EV market, because nobody is making EVs at a profit yet,
Right.
let alone being on the verge of launching Cybercabs. And I think this is something very much underappreciated in the market, that actually nobody is making money on EVs. The capabilities of EVs are much better than ICE vehicles already at this point, and everybody's selling at a loss. So Tesla is competing against companies that are loss making at this moment. So how long is that bubble still
Going to be
The
sustained.
the analogy for me is that you've got farmers, tilling the field by hand, and you've got a company that's invented, horses that till the field, and it's better. But the game is not even that. Now you've got a company making tractors, and so the original farmers are trying to catch up to the guys with horses.
Yeah.
But the game is actually in tractors, and no one's really recognizing that yet.
It's a good way to paint the picture, indeed. Yeah.
Tesla's so far ahead, right? If they can pop out a Cybercab every 5 seconds out of their factory, I mean, the other automakers are just dead in the water.
That's lightning fast, by the way.
And millions of tractors entering the road very soon.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see. Hey, before we hijack the whole meeting with all kinds of sidesteps, and there are millions with Tesla, Florian.
Yeah, thank you, Kenny. I was hoping to ask you some questions as well, Cern, about actually what we've been talking about in the last 10 minutes. But I think the core of the questions are like, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are seeing this happening, what are the possibilities for you as an entrepreneur? So what I would like to ask you is, what's the difference in ROI between buying a used Tesla versus a Cybercab, for example? So if you're an entrepreneur right now, you're seeing what Elon is doing. You have the ambition to become a shepherd. What would you advise him? Would you advise him to buy a second-hand Tesla, or would you say no, please wait and buy a Cybercab?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have theorized that the value of a second-hand Tesla goes up dramatically once the Robotaxi network is in operation, because you're turning a depreciating machine now into a money-making machine. You've fundamentally changed what that vehicle is. So there is an opportunity, I think, to purchase Tesla vehicles secondhand that are FSD capable, with purchased FSD. Again, Tesla has said that they'll make whole those folks, right? If you've got purchased FSD in your car, that they'll make it Robotaxi ready. Now, whether it's AI5 chip remains to be seen. Maybe it might be something else, but either way, it'll be able to be a money-making machine. So that seems like a pretty reasonable way to go. And the nice thing about the existing Tesla vehicles is you can carry more than 2 passengers. Now, maybe there's some other issues that we haven't thought of yet in terms of, what happens if somebody leaves the door open and stuff like that, right? Whereas the Cybercab, that happens automatically. If Tesla does make good on their promise to sell Cybercabs to people, sure, they can make the car for what, $20,000, $25,000? What are they going to sell it to you for? I don't think they're going to sell it to you for $25,000. Why would you sell a money-making machine so cheaply? So I think the lower risk opportunity probably is to pick up some used Teslas that are Robotaxi ready, because it's unclear to me what the Cybercab will actually be sold for.
I believe there are some orders already placed for Cybercabs by the bigger fleet owners, which is not made out in the open yet, but I think they're already opening up for orders.
Yeah.
If that would be the case, they would also go to Mr. Green, right? So
yeah. So, Cern, would you
Oh, sorry.
So would you think that the use case of, let's say, the existing fleet and the Cybercab is different? So Elon talked about the Airbnb model, for sort of mix between Airbnb and Uber. It seems that the Cybercab is sort of the more on the Uber side, and the ride hailing seems to be a little bit more on the Airbnb side. Do you think there's a difference there?
Yes, there is. I mean, I think that ultimately, I think we'll have very specific vehicles for very specific use cases. Right. So, for example, just to expand the conversation to the Cybertruck, every now and then it's really handy to have a truck to haul stuff around.
Yeah.
Right. My mom just recently got a new big screen TV. Couldn't fit that in my car. It wouldn't fit in the Model Y, but it fit beautifully in the Cybertruck. So there's all kinds of use cases where you want different form factors for vehicles. In terms of moving people around, the Cybercab's perfect for, let's say, 90% of the needs that people have. But you do need other vehicles in the fleet to provide that optionality for larger group sizes or to carry certain things. And so that's going to be important. I also think that, by the way, that the amount of revenue you get, for carrying 3 or 4 people should be more than what you would get if you carry just 2 people.
Definitely. There comes
Right.
the Model Y.
Yeah.
So, if I understand you correctly, Cern, if an entrepreneur wants to start becoming a shepherd, it doesn't really matter if he starts with a used Tesla, because the residual value of that car will eventually increase to a certain amount, which is good enough for him to take that risk. But he could also wait and see what Tesla's going to offer with the Cybercab. But if I listen to you correctly, you don't think that Tesla will. They have been telling that they would like to offer them for like 30K.
Yeah.
So are you saying that you don't think that they're going to offer it for 30K?
Well, just think about this, though. If you offer a vehicle for 30K and that vehicle can make, let's just say, $90,000 a year, you've undersold the vehicle. Now, of course, Tesla can make some of this up by taking some of the revenue from Robotaxi, which they will do. So there's 2 things at play, right? There's the value of the car and what the car is worth, right, as a money-making machine, and then of course there's Tesla's take rate on the revenue from the operation of it. So in theory, I guess they could sell the car cheaply, but then they're going to have a much higher take rate on the Robotaxi revenue, right? And it's the same issue with the cost of FSD. On one hand, you could say FSD should be worth a lot because of what it can do. It turns something into a money-making machine. On the other hand, you could argue that, well, they should sell FSD really cheaply for individual use, but when you put your vehicle in the Robotaxi network, they should get a higher percentage of the revenue because you're using FSD that they've developed, which is very valuable, and you're making money off of that. So I guess they've got different levers to pull, Florian, in terms of how they do it. So I suppose they could sell the Cybercab cheaply if they wanted to.
Yeah, indeed. So that's also my follow-up question is like, does it really matter if you buy a used car or a new car? If you are going to build like a fleet of cars, which you will put on the Robotaxi fleet, on the Robotaxi network?
Yeah, I think if you are building a fleet, you probably want to sort of have a term structure, I guess, of vehicles, right? You want some older ones, you want some newer ones, and you kind of want to turn them over, right? And so you've kind of got this fleet that's, not all 1 year, right? Let's say you want vehicles that maybe have been produced over the last, 5 or 6 years, right? And then the ones that are older wear out, and you replace those with a newer batch of vehicles. But I do think that there may be a nice opportunity with used Teslas that have purchased FSD, because right now, when you buy those in the used car market, there is not much of a premium, if anything, for having FSD that's part of the vehicle.
The market doesn't appreciate this or price this in. And you see that from an analyst point of view as well. Nobody really prices in the Robotaxi revenues from it. But
So, sir, are you saying that if you have a used Tesla and you bought FSD, that the money you paid for FSD is not something current sellers getting back?
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's already a interesting one.
Yeah.
And
And particularly if Tesla makes good on their promise to upgrade those vehicles to whatever hardware is necessary to make them robotaxi ready.
And I think they will do that, because if you look at the revenue upside, just a simple hardware adjustment, even though it might prove difficult because of the form factor issues and stuff like that, it will make sense. Like it will justify that investment.
Oh, I think so. And even if Tesla didn't, I think the individual owner would justify their investment of a couple of
To do it
$3,000.
themselves, yeah.
Yep.
Cern, like an underlying question that I have comes from the following. So Demian and I have been buying Amazon businesses as well over the last couple of years. And I still vividly remember a couple of guys coming on a call, and I said, "Well, you did great. You build a company with like 20 million of revenue and 3-4 million of EBITDA. It's awesome what you've built." And they were like, "Yeah, well, we put $500,000 in this company. We could better have bought some Amazon stock. Didn't have to do anything, and our returns would have been better." And I think we're dealing here with, let's say, the same type of arbitrage. So we have a bit of an idea of like where Tesla is going, and also what underlying business opportunities are. Like, how do you look at that information arbitrage? And if we would do, let's say, more efforts for a robotaxi fleet, there should also be a higher return. How do you look at that in comparison to the Tesla stock currently?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a lot of depth to that to really dig into, but just at a surface level, if you are looking for income, right, then building a business and generating income stream makes a lot of sense. If you're looking for maximum growth, then being a passive investor in a company like Tesla, which doesn't pay dividends at this point, is the easier way to go. And frankly, also probably less risky and more diversified as well, even though it's a single company. Now, ideally, you do both, right? Yes, both are good ideas. You can make money on both ideas.
I think also once the market starts recognizing this as a valid business, as a business opportunity, then you enter a whole new world where capital is suddenly becoming available, and this opportunity is now being opened for more and more entrepreneurs entering a certain market, because who else like money making machines? Well, obviously banks, right? So.
Yeah.
Or let's say new economy initiatives that are decentralized finance, like or initiatives that are in the crypto space. So I think once the opportunity is there and recognized, our assumptions on that opportunity is that it's going to be a very big opportunity. Not only a lot of money will flow to the capital markets, but also a ton of money will flow to the markets to utilize this opportunity for the people that want to jump on it.
The other thing too, guys, is that robotaxi, in my mind, is a Trojan horse for humanoid robots.
Yeah.
So if you have a business around robotaxi, you're now giving yourself optionality to be a player in the humanoid bot opportunity, which is an order of magnitude bigger.
So it's a testing ground essentially for the Optimus future.
Yeah, and it's crazy to realize, there are days that are not waking up to this, but end of the year there will be 4,000 or 5,000 working in Tesla factories already. So, being caught by the tractor is already a big one, but the Lamborghini tractor is already on its way.
Right. Yeah, that's right. We have to extend the analogy to the next thing, right? Yeah.
The next tractor.
Yeah.
Maybe because I like that remark a lot about the Trojan horse that you just made about building this setting up this shepherd business, that it's actually a Trojan horse who set up this humanoid. Can you elaborate a little bit how these two businesses can affect each other and leverage each other?
Sure. Yeah, Florian, I've heard you talk about the Cybercab and other Tesla vehicles are robots on wheels. All right, and robots with wheels that can move stuff are great. but they're limited in what they can do. They can move stuff around, and that's hugely important in our society. Moving stuff is a big business globally, right? People, goods, etc. Huge business. Look at Amazon. Look at the shipping companies. Huge business. But even bigger than that is everything else that we do. And so with humanoid robots, we have an AI-powered machine that for the first time in human history will be able to outcompete us at some point with respect to the work that we are able to do as humans. The humanoid robot can work 7,000 hours a year. I don't know about you guys, but I can't come close to that. Right? I wouldn't want to.
Nope. And especially not doing manual labor in the same time, like
Exactly.
non-stop. Dexterity, creating, but also assembling.
Right. And they're only going to get better over time, whereas humans get to a point and then you kind of plateau and then level off. So anyway, the examples go on, but the humanoid robot will be able to do eventually anything that a human can do from a labor perspective, and maybe even more, but just from a labor perspective. The human race has never had a machine that can outcompete us in that way. We've had specialized machines that can do certain things better, but we've never had a general purpose machine that can do anything that a human can do. So,
and without a human coming to operate that machine.
That's right. And so having a robotaxi fleet, having robots on wheels is going to be important in moving these humanoid robots around. So if you are a fleet operator for the robots on wheels, that will serve you well in terms of positioning the other robots where they need to be to provide other services on top of that robotaxi network of just moving stuff from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So for example, package delivery, how do you get the package from the vehicle to your doorstep?
Exactly.
So you use it's a very hard problem that many companies are working very hard on, like Uber and Amazon, on sort of last mile delivery. That's sort of the holy grail in where everybody's looking for, but the humanoid would easily solve that issue.
Well, it's the last 15-meter delivery really is the issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Just getting out of the car, walking to the doorstep.
Yeah. And maybe the robot will just like throw it on the doorstep, and that'll be great. It'll look like Michael Jordan when it throws your package
with a catapult.
Well,
Sir, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. It's fine.
Yeah. So I'm actually kind of intrigued by your Trojan horse kind of analogy, because of course you're right that when you have a logistic company with robo-cabs, you're able to deliver those humanoids to the place where you want to go. But Kees and I have been working on something the last few months, which is also getting more and more out in the open, is that that the physical AI is built upon data from real world data. So the cars which are driving around are already accumulating a lot of data in order to build the foundation model to create a self-driving car. But that self-driving car, the brains of that car can be copy-pasted to the brains of the humanoid.
Mm-hmm.
With the only exception is that the cars are not allowed to drive there where humans are actually walking. But maybe Kees, you can explain a little bit about what we're doing with the data and how we see it as a business model also for shepherds. Because there are a lot of people already working on this. It's like, how can we accumulate this real world data in order to deploy the humanoids? And as of this moment, we only know that Tesla is accumulating the data for themselves. But maybe we can, and also Tesla can use that data to bring it to third-party operators working in this new world. So maybe, Kees, you can explain a little bit about what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so we've been tapping into the Fleet API for quite some time now. And of course, you're gathering immense amounts of video data from multiple camera angles. You could be able to store that data and sell it to third parties that might map out whole cities, or charging data, or voice control data. There's a lot of valuable information that we can map out the world. And that's like, I think right now, if it's very difficult to pinpoint like a specific value to that. And I'm not sure if like anybody really takes this into account into their Tesla valuations. So very curious how you look towards that. And because like we are interested in, you laid out that 3-step model. Like if Tesla can operate it themselves, you have a fleet operator, and you have individual owners. Our vision is more, we are the fleet operator running our own fleet, but also in the meanwhile enabling private owners and small fleet operators, where we gather or accumulate all that data, and we will be able to utilize that data.
Yeah, just a quick comment on that, by the way. As an individual vehicle owner, let's say I contribute my vehicle to the fleet for 4 hours today. Do I get paid based on the activity of my individual vehicle? Right? That's an open question, because my individual vehicle might not be optimized to produce the most revenue. Tesla, as the fleet operator or as the network operator, might want to actually position my vehicle in a certain place in case someone needs a ride. So my vehicle actually may not see a lot of action. So should I not get paid just because it's sitting there when other people's vehicles may have had more rides? So there's the structure of the network and how that's going to work, I think, is that remains to be seen. I'm sorry, I went on such a tangent, I've forgotten your question.
Yeah, so maybe I can hop in and we can talk about it further. Is that what we're working with some companies? What their names again? Kees?
Well, there's multiple companies. So you have a lot of fleet API companies out there. Of course, one of those is Standard Fleet, the first third-party partner of Tesla in that.
Yeah.
But you can extend it further, because Resla, for instance, and we might too, we're using Fleet. So they're doing the back-end day-to-day operations, enabling people to run their business. But more the consumer-oriented stuff is companies like Ziva Global or Matter AI, that sell USB drives to store that video data instead of just the flash drive that's in the Tesla vehicle. There's tons of companies out there.
So
yeah, and also Natix, for example.
Yeah.
They're all trying to get a position in the car. So what they do is they put the USB on the car, and they collect the data, and that data you can sell again. So we've been talking about them. What's the value of that data, and to whom are you going to sell that data? So at this moment, they only sell it to, for example, insurance companies.
Yeah.
And they say the data already to see whether an accident happened and how it happened and who was actually involved in the accident, just as we are seeing right now with the crazy Nazi people spraying and scratching the cars. There's actually valuable data because you know who it is, and you can actually go after him. So that's the same with an accident and with insurance. So they told us that data is worth around 50 to 100 euros per month per car.
Wow.
So that's and that's just one use case.
Yeah.
So I think they were talking about the data being a value of about between $2 and $4 per mile. So I don't know how many miles Tesla already collected, but I think it's in the billions, with a value of $2 per mile. How is this actually put on the balance sheet of Tesla? Is it already on the balance sheet of Tesla, for example? And how is this going to play out for third-party players? And how is Tesla thinking about this kind of business models?
Yeah. So actually, again, there's a lot of depth to this. So think about the different potential customers, right? You've got municipalities, governments, local governments, cities that could benefit from a lot of the data coming from the vehicles, whether it's real-time pothole, detection and
Yep.
alert, right? There's a pothole here, go fix it.
Yep.
Or even just issues with the infrastructure, like the traffic light's not working, or this signpost is someone hit it and it's fallen on the road, or a tree has fallen over. All that kind of stuff would be tremendously valuable to municipalities. I would imagine in that case, Tesla might just provide that for free and say, "Hey, we're being a good company here. We're helping you out, helping out, good Samaritan. We're helping make the roadways safer for everybody." That kind of stuff. That would be great. And then at the other extreme, who is going to pay a ton of money for this information? Well, that's Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a hedge fund and you want to keep track of certain things, like how many cars are in a parking lot in front of a certain store, or how many Amazon trucks do you see on the road, or whatever data they want to track, this would be one way to facilitate that in a certain area if they cared about that. Now, they're already using satellite imagery. There's companies that provide that every single day to Wall Street in terms of where ships are and how many cars in a parking lot and stuff like that. So those are the two extremes, I think, in terms of maybe getting data for free and then being willing to pay a ton of money for it. And then there's a bunch of companies kind of in the middle that probably would pay for portions of the data that's relevant to them. And certainly insurance companies would be a big customer. So yeah, I think that's an interesting one. The other one is advertising. You can advertise on the outside of the vehicle. You could advertise on the inside of the vehicle. And then kind of related to it is you can create, because the vehicle is, Grok-powered, the vehicle could be your guide. And you could have this guided experience. So if I travel to Amsterdam, I could get in a Cybercab and it could take me around the city and tell me everything about what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Right. And then I could say, take me to the best restaurant in this area that serves this kind of food, and it would take me there. And by the way, then the restaurants would pay.
Yeah, I like the direction where it's going. From, I think if you look at what Elon is doing, Elon never works in the day-to-day, right? So he's always 10 years ahead and works on where he wants to go. So I really liked what you posted about the functions that each of Elon's company had put together in one slide. And the X and XAI is, from my point of view, one of the first consolidations that we're going to see within the Elon empire. And with X, they're working on the everything everything app, right? So all the goods and services that you use in your daily life can be powered by X. XAI is trying to understand the secrets of the universe. So therefore, it really needs the real-world data that Optimus and the Cybercabs are providing. And right now we have a fleet of globally, let's say, of 10 million. But 10 years from now, there will be a fleet of probably 150 to 250 million cars. And so the whole, I'm very excited about Kees and Florian already working on the API store, because I think that API and the App Store are sort of early innings where Tesla is developing, because especially when the fleet is that large, 200 million, 250 million-ish, that also has never happened in the world. The same counts for Optimus. Like, is it already crowded in a restaurant? And so that information is going to become so real time. And especially if you see, like, okay, I want to drive around in, only that feature would be already fun. Like, drive around in Sydney, bam. And some FSD car will accept that offer. You pay like $1 and then off you go. So you can think about millions of things there. But I think that is, from my point of view, something inevitable, and we cannot. Elon also talked about using the cars as the total compute of all the cars together
Mhm.
is also something valuable that is going to happen, because in the end, even if you drive 10 hours a day, there's still 14 hours of compute left, and you have that battery already in place that can power that. But those are things that we cannot envision how it's going to look like, but it's going to be inevitable that this stuff is all going to happen.
Think about how useful it would be for police forces. They're looking for a certain vehicle. Now, with the whole Robotaxi fleet, you can basically look at every license plate of every car on the road instantly.
Yeah.
Right. And tell the police exactly where that vehicle is. So there's just all kinds of applications for that data. And of course, it's the perfect thing for AI to parse through and find out what's relevant with all the data that's coming in.
And to put it to
Yeah,
efficient
so
use.
it's something that Kees and I looked at when we visited the Giga factory in Berlin. The opening, we got the opportunity to walk around and see everything, the lineup. And at the end, we saw this chip, and with 8 cameras. And I said to Kees, I think this is the most important part of the whole factory.
Yeah.
So we touched upon the cameras actually getting all the data in there, but we also have a compute in the car. So I think you touched upon this as well, Cern, about the inference compute which is available in the car. Can you elaborate and maybe talk a little bit about what you think the value is going to be of that compute in the car?
Yeah, I built a model for this, Florian, probably a year and a half ago now, and it was really just a stab in the dark, and it still is. But there's no doubt that if you have a powerful computer in the vehicle, that is very useful for AI inference.
Cern, is
And then
that model?
multiply that.
You shared some slides with me, and I would love to show it. In which document is that? Is it in one of the 3?
I don't think I sent that to you. I'm happy to send it to you, but it's kind of an old model at this point.
Okay.
I actually worked with James Dalma a little bit on that.
Awesome.
And he and I basically concluded that at this point, we don't know what the pricing would look like. But certainly at scale, it's a very valuable thing.
Yeah, I think we also discussed a little bit about it, Cern. It's that with AI, you need compute. And with compute, you need a lot of energy. So with the cars already having a compute in there, and also their batteries already in there, it's like a distributed force of AI already in place. So if you add all the gigawatt hours in battery already in place of the 6-7 million cars already roaming the world, together with the compute power in there, there's already kind of a use case only for having some models running on that compute in the car. So we definitely need an expert like James Dalma to really explain this, but I think we are already kind of grasping the idea of how this could play out.
I think they're.
Allows you. Sorry, Kenny.
Yeah, I think they're already doing, right? I read something about it.
What are they doing?
Well,
I think they're already partly using a
a
part of the fleet to run some of the models. I think Elon mentioned it, or someone mentioned it in the last couple of weeks.
Well, let's say that supercluster. What have they paid with XAI for that whole supercluster? Is like 20 billion, something in that realm, or that is the fundraise that XAI has been doing to build compute. Well, let's say the computer within a Tesla cost $2,500. Then you can divide that 20 billion to the 2,500 and see how many cars you need to come to the same compute as that supercluster, as a rough estimation, because those are specialized computers, and I understand all that. But the amount of compute will start exceeding that very rapidly when cars are coming off the line every 5 seconds.
And it's a combination too of the car is going to need that compute itself, perhaps, but certainly when it's idle, you can use that compute, right, for other things, less maybe time sensitive type work.
Yeah.
It remains to be seen. It's certainly a nice asset. And the other thing that we're not mentioning is the same chip is in the humanoid robot. It's an Optimus as well. Right. Now, maybe there's one chip instead of two in there, but still, it doesn't take many Optimists to get, equal to the fleet of the vehicles. So they're going to have a massive mobile distributed inference capability.
Yeah, I'm not as technically advanced as most of the people are, but is it possible to train like AI models on that compute as well that are in the cars and maybe in Optimus in a while?
I don't think so. I don't think it would be optimized for that. I think it's more for inference, which 95% of what we need for AI ultimately will be inference.
Okay.
Yep.
Once you build the model, so it's good. It's going to be in the right place.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off there, Florian.
So sort of a napkin calculation to have 20 billion 20 billion in compute requires roughly 8 million cars to get on the road. So when you're then at the point of having 20 million cars being built annually, then you see how much compute also is going to be deployed just by selling cars.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be amazing, and I think we need to do a deep dive into this in one of our next episodes, Kees. So we need to invite somebody who's going to help us explain this. I think for this episode, we would like to touch on two more items. One is the age of abundance, which I want to discuss in 10 minutes. But we also wanted to discuss the Doge Flywheel. Maybe Demian, you can ask Cern some questions about this and how you envision this Doge being a flywheel for Tesla as well.
Yeah, and just a flywheel for let's bridge that for that sort of age of abundance. And obviously, there's a lot of dirt where let's say we as a society as a whole need to go through. So a lot of secrets are being revealed. A lot of things how sort of the system has been operating behind the scenes. But yeah, for me, I think that's a lot of noise and not very much signal that we're hearing there. So we talked about it in our podcast that the whole Doge operation is a sort of 5 pillar flywheel that Elon has created there. So the first one is obviously cost saving, so people keep more money in the pocket, and we start seeing the savings of Doge being openly being published on their website. The second is less regulation. What that means for companies is so much money is now being spent of lawyers and administration just to keep your business running. Depends on what kind of sector you are, but let's say you're in the banking system. Well, you already need like 50 to 100 million a year to just operate your bank, and a lot of these people will start, need to start doing something else. But if you think about it from a sort of productivity standpoint, those people are just referees on the field and not players. So I think that whole efficiency thing is not only less rules and regulation, but also people being freeing up and starting being more productive, entering more productive roles. So Elon touched on that, and that's point number 3. So people moving from a sort of bad operating system to a more efficient operating system. And he used the analogy of East Berlin versus West Berlin at that point. So that will go into add. We have seen the cost savings already. So point number 1 is already in place. We have seen the efficiency. So Doge is also publishing the amount of rules and words being used in things. And we start already seeing sort of job numbers that are quite positive in the US. So that means a lot of new initiatives are being started and investments are being made. The 4th pillar is obviously a very important one, the lower interest rates, because now you keep more money in your pocket as a government as well, so you can have better conditions there, therefore less cost for people in their daily lives, because in the end the consumers are paying that interest rate, be it by mortgages, being by goods or services just being more expensive. And the fifth pillar is that it just becomes more attractive to work and start your company, because if there's less rules or regulations and there's more access to people and there's more money that you keep in your pocket, then the incentives are aligned to sort of start your own business and become more entrepreneurial. So there's a lot of data that shows the less bureaucratic a country is, the more entrepreneurial it becomes, and the more wealth you create as a company. And I think all those five pillars will influence Tesla very much for the good, because those Teslas are being used for people in their daily lives. So financing becomes more attractive. That's the thing. People have more money in the pocket, so they can buy a sort of car in that sort of segment. Maybe that's a bit of an optimist view on how things go, but I think we already seeing the first things in interest rates coming down and savings that are being made, that this flywheel is now already start rolling.
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation. And actually, I would even extend it a little further. And this takes us right into this idea of sustainable abundance. Right. So again, as I mentioned, for the first time in human history, we're developing a machine that can outcompete us. So think about this. You've got a nation that has that and a nation that doesn't.
Yep.
It doesn't take much to imagine that the nation that doesn't have that suddenly is not competitive against the nation that does. And so for me, Doge is kind of a metaphor for the process that every country, every company, and basically every family needs to go through to make sure that they're not wasting, that they're saving, that they're efficient, et cetera, because this change that is about to come with AI-powered humanoid robots and cars that drive themselves is such a powerful competitive force on the world that we've never seen before, and it's going to hit us so quickly. And I don't think really hardly anybody appreciates how rapid this change is going to come. So think about this too, in terms of, let's just imagine a world where all labor is done by a humanoid robot. Let's assume that eventually we get to the point where bots are that capable. Now, think about your family. You've got parents, one or two, that work, and they provide for the kids. Okay, and most families provide whatever they can for the kids, right? Like, we're not looking for the kids to work. Now, hundreds of years ago, that was the case. Kids used to work. But now we don't do that so much anymore, at least in the Western world.
Kenny is being raised as a kid to work. So.
There you go. Yeah, there's always a few exceptions. But think about the humanoid robot world where adults no longer need to work to provide for the family at the extreme. So in that sense, we all become kids in that sense, and that we're dependent upon this new form of labor to provide things for us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, you could imagine that might end badly if we all sit around and eat ice cream and lay on the couch all day because we don't need to work. Right. And I suppose a few people will opt to do that. But it also frees up humans from the toil of labor.
There's no more need to exchange labor for money, and scarcity becomes a thing of the past. And of course, like there's this human nature view that has always lived out there, that a human is lazy by nature, and that has held back like a universal basic income, for instance, to pop up, whilst experiments, however minor they were, all around the globe, prove the exact opposite.
That's right. And we're about to test that theory, I think, at scale pretty rapidly. Because initially, humanoids certainly will be a tool for us to be better at our jobs, to be like an assistant. And then it'll start taking the jobs that humans don't want. That's great. And then it's going to start taking every job. And the change will be like that. Right. I don't know when that is. It might be 10, 15 years from now, but that point is coming. In the early days, it's going to look really clumsy. These robots today still look pretty clumsy.
Yeah.
Right? Walking like Joe Biden or whoever you want to, they're walking like. But
Joe Biden,
make
definitely.
no mistake, right? Make no mistake, they are the worst they're ever going to be right now.
Yeah.
And so you just need to think forward a little bit, and it's a profound change on the entire world. So I think, back to your point, that Doge, I think, is just the process that we all need to go through.
Mhm.
And I'm really interested to see which country is next in line to do a Doge type effort. Right? And the quicker that countries do that, the better off they will be. Because in this world that's coming, it's going to be a force of deflation like we've never seen before. And so if you're not already efficient and lean, it's going to be a very painful process.
Yeah.
Can you explain why that's going to be a painful process? Because it feels a little bit contradictory. If there's enough money being made by robots, why do you care about efficiency in the government?
Yes.
Well, it's the transition that I think is risky.
Exactly. And like before we dive into this, because a very good question, Florian, and I've put it on screen a bit before, but there's this article by RoboFlock, and he said actually that in order to get to that state of abundance, we now need to put in the most effort and the hard work to actually prepare for that. And I think, Cern, you're gonna enlighten us. But this article, I can recommend it to everyone. It's from at RoboFlock. He is laying it out perfectly here, and also he's basing his work on Tony Seba and rethinks.
Well, I'm in order of, let's say, next in line, Cern. I'm I think optimistic because Elon always famously wears his tech support T-shirt. So he builds this up from a technological solution, and I even have been talking with Florian about XAI, sort of shadow running the operations on X, because he just wants to have the wizard engineers building sort of the future of that app. And I think same goes for government, because it's such a headache to work with the Cobalt and all the legacy technology. How is it called, that ex-founder of Airbnb that is on board? He talked briefly about sort of having an Apple or Airbnb like experience for all your stuff for the government. And this is also what was being touched on one of the earlier interviews with Mark Andreessen, where he talked about what these guys are building in the background is like the truly groundbreaking stuff. So now it's a lot of noise with some cuts and all the bills that are being published. So that's just the sort of stage one work. Same with Twitter, right? So let's keep the things in the air, make sure it's not loss making anymore, and from there on we start the innovation part. And since the legacy is so painful with systems of 50 years old, it will be probably overhauled in one big overtake, and that sort of template of how to operate these kind of things will be then more easily, let's say, accessible for governments around the world.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
And I think what the point that I want to try to emphasize here too is that, the system that we have in the United States is critical for developing this technology. But as this technology propagates through society, the system that I think, by and large, that we see more in Europe is going to be more necessary in terms of that mindset, in terms of taking care of people and dealing with the fallout of this as people start to lose their jobs to robots. Those people need to be taken care of in some way that's respectful, that works economically.
Yeah.
Right. And not allowed to become a political force that's trying to stop this technology. Because if we stop it, you know what? China is not.
No, I will be late.
We'll be late. And so this is a very key time, and particularly now with like in the United States, with the political environment, I've often said that if I was an advisor to the Democratic Party, I would get them to embrace Elon more than Trump is embracing him. They should be fighting over guys like him.
Yeah, and that's they're doing the exact opposite right now, and
Yeah.
they're so underestimating what
Yeah.
this guy is capable of, and what
Yeah, but
he can.
I think Elon explained it pretty well in the same interview that we just showed in the beginning about setting up a free tariff zone. He also mentioned in that same interview is that the people who are not in favor of this are the current establishment, and those are the big companies.
Yeah.
The big companies, they have their cash flows, they have their dividends, they have their shareholders, etc. And the big companies are not known for innovation. So they know they're going to lose against innovation. So what do they do in order to stop innovation is they build a lot of rules.
Complexity.
Complexity,
Yeah, and they thrive on scarcity.
kind of things.
They thrive on scarcity of goods.
But the most important thing is we should keep innovation at the lowest point as possible, because innovation is going to really disrupt us. So I think that's the real problem right now, is that we have to shift from the establishment to new innovation, which is already knocking on our door. And China is already doing this. So China is the new world, and we, Europe, and together with US, are the old world, and we're trying to keep it in the same place, but we are seeing that we are getting disrupted. So I think we are in an amazing transition phase where actually a lot of things are going to break, but there's also a lot of things which we can build up again. And this is this age of abundance that Elon is talking about. And
Yeah,
so what I'm trying to go to is to that article that you were showing, Kees, is actually is a pretty good article. And if you pop it up, I can walk through a little bit through it to see if we can touch upon some stuff which are written in that article. But
Yeah, sure.
one of the things that they so we learned from Elon like 4 weeks ago, that the new mission of Tesla is the sustainable abundance. And this is actually the mission for humanity's future. So we talked about, what does abundance mean? Well, abundance means that we don't need to work anymore. We don't need money anymore. We have a lot of abundance. So he tells there's already some abundance already in our world, which is the internet and water supply. But he also says that he got some lessons from reading the Ian Banks series. And Elon referred to these books several times to explain to people how he sees this future of abundance. And this book talks about AI and humanity actually converging and living in a world where there's abundance. So it's amazing that we are actually going into this place, and this is the place that he wants us to go to. And so in this world, work transforms into an optional activity driven by personal interest and not by economic necessity anymore. Money loses its relevance and time takes center stage. So that's what I wanted to talk about, is if we are entering a world with robotaxis and humanoids, and those assets, real world assets, are producing real world cash flow, who is going to get all that cash flow? So if all that cash flow is going to Tesla, we will get an issue, people revolting, hey, I'm losing my job, and all the money is going to Tesla. So what I wanted to ask you, Cern, is how does Tesla think about this issue? And how is Tesla and Elon and how is the community of Tesla thinking about who's going to own these assets and how are they going to be funded?
Yeah, no, these are important questions. And I actually had an interaction with Elon last summer on this. where I had a post about whether Tesla would rent out the robots or sell them.
Mhm.
And Elon's response was both.
Yep.
And so the fact that he's saying that we're going to sell them is an important answer to this question. It's much like the answer to the Robotaxi network in terms of selling cybercabs to people. He's giving people the ability to earn income for themselves, both on the cars and with humanoid robots. And I think that's important. I think he recognizes the issue that if one company controls all these machines, that's not going to work. You have a rebellion on your hand. They're going to storm your company with pitchforks and take everything.
And they're
You
already
need to
doing
make
it.
sure- They're already trying to do that. Yeah. Right. And so you have to share the wealth. You have to make sure that to the extent possible, we leave no one behind. Now, of course, in reality, that's impossible, but you have to try.
So
Yeah.
if we are all assuming that this is the case, so Tesla needs to share the cash flows with the community. How is this going to look like? Because I've been trying to find a solution for this. So how is a $30,000 Cybercab going to be funded then? Is that going to be funded by a single family, or how is this going to work out? What's your idea on that?
Well, I mean, I think initially it's fairly clear because the world isn't going to change that quickly initially, right? It's at the extreme other end where you start to question things, and Elon's made the comment about what is money at this point, right?
Yeah.
But early on, I think it's pretty clear. You're buying a money-making machine, so you pay $30,000 for it. You can finance that through a bank, maybe even through Tesla directly, most likely through a bank, just like you would any other auto loan. And then you put that vehicle in the fleet and you start earning an income. And it's highly likely that that income on that vehicle is more than you paid for just in the first year. And so that's going to attract a lot of people to that business, right? And there's going to be, Uber drivers, for example, that are put out of work that are probably sell their vehicle and buy a Cybercab and make some money that way. So I think that's pretty clear. It's just as this then filters through the economy and starts taking away more drivers' jobs and other people's jobs with the humanoid bots, how does that transition look? And unfortunately, I think there's a role for nation states in this.
Mhm.
And of course, that's where it gets political, and that's where it gets, we're going to have two camps on this in terms of how they think about it,
And
at least here in the US.
will nation states be able to do this? Aren't we going towards a more global new form of state? Because nation state building is already 200 years old, and in the old paradigm of capitalism. And
you can easily think about cities like Abu Dhabi or Dubai that wants to say, well, we're a Cybercab operated city from day one. They're a little bit more totalitarian in their rules. So.
Yep.
The more totalitarian countries will probably be the first to introduce this.
And the sooner you do it, the better, because it's going to put you in a more competitive position for a whole bunch of other stuff.
For everything you have to offer in your city, and just the quality of living of the people goes up with so many points at once. In the positive scenario, in the negative scenario, it will help more control, because you can track where cars are, etc., and you basically can control what the cars are doing, probably to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to enter many of these sort of, the first to adapt will have a very much competitive advantage situations in the next 10 years. And
There was a video I was watching last night. They were talking about the advent of the automobile, and that the UK could have set itself up as one of the major world manufacturers. But when automobiles were first introduced there, they had a red flag rule. Someone had to walk in front of the car waving a red flag because cars were so dangerous to people.
Yeah.
And you had to have two drivers in the car. So, of course, regulations, totally stymied any advantage that they might have had in the UK in terms of being able to build these things, because the demand wasn't there because of the rules. And I think we run the same risk with this technology, but we have to recognize that this is absolutely critical, because if we don't do it, someone else will.
Well,
I think
Hey,
it's also.
you
Sorry, can go out.
Yeah, if I may ask, like I can understand that a lot of our listeners are not as far advanced in this age of abundance as Florian and you, Cern. Let's say if I'm a regular person and maybe an entrepreneur, or also on let's say a bigger scale for a country, how can I as a person or as a country be positioned in the right way to make most use of this age that is coming upon us? Like, well, what would be your advice if I would be asking you that, if we're sitting in a bar or now here in a podcast?
Great question.
Yeah, I think it's to find a way to be a part of this new movement, whether it's robotaxi and being a vehicle or a small fleet owner, or in the case of humanoid robots, is positioning yourself to be a part of that movement as well. Because one thing I know for sure, I would want to try to own a few of those machines that are changing the world. I'd rather own the machines changing the world than be subject to a machine that's changing my world. Right. And that's just inevitable. I'm sorry. It's just inevitable. It's coming. I don't know when. It might be longer in the future than I think it is. It might be 25 years from now, for all I know. But it also could be as quick as 5 years from now. And so I think you want to be prepared for that change. It's coming. Humanity's seen other massive changes before. It's just that none of us have lived through them. We've read about them in history books, and they seem like nice, neat changes where we go from riding a horse to driving a car. But you know what? The history of that was a mess, right? They had dirt roads. These roads were covered in mud, and these cars were tearing up the roads, and all the horse owners were complaining, and the gasoline was a mess. Like, there was so many issues with that transition.
Yeah, I think so. And then I'm also curious to hear Florian's view on it, because he has a bright mind and is always busy with, let's say, 10 years down the line. But I went a little bit deeper on, like, what are the things, like with AI as well, right? So what are the things in the past we had, like, that things would change? And the funny thing is, you wouldn't imagine, but when boats went from sailing to, let's say, automatic boats or boats like steamboats, they had hybrids. Can you imagine, like, how it looks so silly right now, but we're doing exactly the same with cars, you know? So it was for me a moment of epiphany. But for me, and I'm a guy who always works in Excel, and the guys make fun of me all the time, and PDFs and everything that fits in it is my truth, you know? But there's a lot in vision as well. And I'm trying to get on the train, and I think I'm more advanced than general people, but I try to get people with me, and I say, like, read these books or do this stuff. But I think you have to get in the knit of it. So I had an AI training last week, and that just, like, opens your mind. You know, there's, like, so much opportunity and things that are going on. But as you say, like, being just involved in this transition would be good for everyone. Maybe Florian, you have an idea, and also maybe concrete action points for listeners to get on the bandwagon here.
Yeah, I do have a few. So
If you don't buy a Tesla, you're buying a horse.
Definitely. That's why I bought a Tesla.
well, definitely on the AI, because, you know, many people are having a ChatGPT or a Grok, you know, membership, or how do you call it?
Subscription.
But there you pay like $100, $200. While average employee in your company, well, let's say, cost between 5,000 and 10,000 euros or dollar at any given point. So I was having a discussions with I'm setting up a new company right now. So I said, gents, we need to double down. If we have like 5K or 10K monthly memberships or things or courses or whatever we have. So learning from my past. So I'm have a history of online advertising, and I remember the days starting to advertise when Google clicks were just 1 cent and Facebook clicks were just 1 cent. And I remember, like, oh well, our rate for email addresses is now 10 cents. That's way too much. So we were very conservative about that opportunity, what was at hand right now. So I will say, if you pay 10,000 euros in subscriptions for AI at this moment, it's still just basically one high paid employee that you have working there. and will benefit you tremendously if you start understanding that world. And humanoids and robotaxis are just one part of that whole super intelligence that is starting to become reality in front of our eyes.
Yeah, and I would just add too, just again from a big picture standpoint, you think about parents and what they do for their kids. What do? We protect them, we provide for them, right? We educate them, we guide them, and we care for them. And that's exactly what humanoid robots are going to do for all of humanity. Again, whether you like it or not, there's pros and cons to all this. But we're developing machines that are truly intelligent. You look at them today, they're clumsy, but they're only going to get better. And so we better find a way to adapt to this as quickly as possible because it's coming. And so there's opportunity in that. There has to be, right, Kenny? Anytime there's a change, there has to be opportunity for people somewhere in that change.
Yeah, 100%.
Whether you choose to see it or not.
Yeah, 100%. I think we'll adapt in the end.
Of course,
Yeah.
we will.
The opportunity it will bring is that we as a conscious beings are freed up of being a slave to money.
Yeah.
And that's something which is completely behind. It's such a new paradigm that we need to get used to it, but we will get used to it, and we will get into a new kind of consciousness and higher consciousness.
The implications are super big.
And we will also be connected to the AI. So with Neuralink coming, there will be the first persons who are actually gonna be as brave to actually connect with AI and learn languages in 15 minutes or whatever. And there will be people who say, well, I'm too scared to do it. So the new divide will not be between rich and poor, but between connected to AI or not. Probably, there's going to be a totally different kind of mindset about that. So that's maybe the more important discussions that we need to have. And I had one more question for you, Cern, but I don't know if we have time anymore, Kees.
Well, I think we still have a little bit of time.
Yep.
But let's say we extend it with, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes. About after 10 minutes, I'll give a sign and then we'll stop. Yeah?
But Kenny, you go ahead. You wanted to ask something.
Yeah, I don't want to waste too much of the time, but I think I tried to go back to history, and have been so many times when we've had the same as well. I think machines that we saw coming on the landscaping, when we had farms, everybody thought everybody would lose his. Yeah, Industrial Revolution came from it. So I think there will be always a use for people, and I think it will be more to the creative part, because now a lot of my time actually goes in my work to doing structured things that are 90% the same. While the 10% I think is the most nice stuff to focus on. So I hope we will transition to focusing more on the 10%, using our creativity and using that for a full day. Demian, don't make a don't say anything.
No, I was saying, Kenny, I was focusing on 100% on all the good stuff, but that is also not good for your brain. You need some structure as well sometimes. So.
Yeah, I've seen it can bring a lot of carnage as well. Yes, Demian, but that doesn't account for everyone. We're same people at the other side here. So,
sorry, if you think about it, we're all going to have our own personal coaches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Demian, we were sitting one time in his garden, and he has some gym stuff laying around. So he was like, "What happens if Optimus is here? He can look at your posture is right. He can say, do push-ups. You need to move. Maybe you get some data hey, your blood pressure is too high. Relax a little bit, So it can help you advance in all kinds of stuff. So I can't wait to have it around the house.
I'm building my new company on this idea. I'm building a company in health, so increasing our health as humans. So my idea was Elon is taking care of the machines. What is my vision on helping humans? One of the things that we're building are we're just collecting a lot of equipment that is collecting data. So we say we provide the sensors. So we have sensors that can measure your body composition, your heart rate, all that. And normally it was just impossible to just make sense of all the data and come with a sort of congruent advice. But my idea is that sensors will have a huge value in the world because it feeds the AI with the data we're collecting.
Yeah, I think Optimus too is one giant sensor. He'll be able to tell you in real time the quality of the air that you're breathing.
Yeah.
Right. Just all kinds of stuff like that is huge.
Body
For now,
heart
I have
rate.
Optimus behind me, making me work. He's got the hammer in his hand. But hopefully in the future, I'll be standing behind him. Yeah.
You can imagine like all those fingers having different sensors, so he can measure body temperature, room temperature.
Yeah.
If somebody's got a flu or not, or those things are very easily detectable, but we're just not used to having all these sensors around.
That's right.
But I think for you, Demian, it will be very confronting because you will see also some gaps in your personality and other flaws. So I think you will have a big list, but let's not go there because then we need another day for this podcast.
Yeah, let's go to that $1 million question, Florian.
Yeah, so before I want to do that, maybe you can find the advertisement which Frank made for the Tesla Robotaxi. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
You mean with Grok in the car as well?
Yeah, it's amazing. This is a girl who's being picked up by the Robotaxi.
Yeah.
Robotaxi advertising.
Maybe we can put it on the screen. Is it possible, Florian? Yeah. I know how it looks like, but
sort of final video then, or
no? But let's have Kees be busy with that. But I saw something going back to the Robotaxi, Cern, in the business model. This guy Phil Beisel put out an excellent article regarding the business model and how it's going to change everything. And he also talked about this disruption that the cars made to the horses, etc. So he made the same analogy. And I saw a remark of you where you were talking about the repositioning of the cars, which will be key. So for Robotaxi to actually become a real disruption, it needs to drive enough miles in order to get enough cars off the road. So the utilization is going to be like a key driver. And a key driver for having a high utilization is actually repositioning. So what I read is that you were talking about this kind of an AI model trying to get this problem out of the way. Can you elaborate a little bit about that and why you think repositioning is such a key element in this business model?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. And Phil and I have talked about this as well. The customer experience with Robotaxi is going to depend on having a vehicle immediately available or close to immediately available. Right. A lot of times you can schedule your departure, but many times it's spontaneous. You want a vehicle, you want to walk outside, grab a taxi and go. So in that case, and in order for that to work, you need to reposition the vehicles in places where people are likely to need them. Well, how do you figure that out? Well, you need to know where people are. You need to know what people are going to do. So if you are a Robotaxi network subscriber, then the network may learn some of your habits, like when you go to work and when you leave work, etc. Or even that just the vehicles driving around can notice that there's a congregation of people at this sporting event, and it's likely at some point that those people are going to want to go home or a concert or something, right? And so you need the capabilities of AI to parse through all that data about what's going on in a city to figure out then where to optimally place the vehicles. It's too complex of a problem for a person to figure out. Now, obviously, if there's a concert, then it's pretty obvious, or a football game, you're going to need to position vehicles next to those venues, but it's more nuanced than that. I would also say too, from a robotaxi revenue perspective, one of the keys is that if you can drive your costs of operation down, then you can afford to actually have a very low utilization rate on a per vehicle basis and still end up with revenue for the network that's very high. Because again, you're providing a service to customers that's so compelling at an attractive price. Right. And that was to my point earlier about, as an individual vehicle owner, I don't necessarily want to be paid on the use of my vehicle, but more of the vehicles in the network during the time that I put my vehicle in.
Mm-hmm.
Because if my vehicle's sitting for 4 hours and I don't get paid, that's no good to me. But still, that was very useful for the network. Right. That may actually help the network optimize its total revenue.
Yep.
So Florian, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but touched on a different.
Definitely. And it also reminded me of something I think Alexander Mertz also mentioned, is that also the repositioning AI model behind the repositioning will also help increase the value proposition.
Yeah.
Because if I just came back from a visit to France with the airplane. I came to the airport. I ordered an Uber, but I had to time the moment the Uber was actually coming and I was at that place.
Yep.
And it's always that I have to wait for like 5 to 10 minutes. But with an AI repositioning model behind it, it will probably become like less than 1 minute. That's actually the value proposition enhancement as well. So that was something I wanted to add as well. But that's what popped up in my mind when you answered this question.
Yeah, I would imagine as a Robotaxi Network subscriber, for example, it'll know where you are at all times. And if you're walking through an airport, right, it knows where you are and it can more properly time the arrival of a vehicle with your arrival. That kind of stuff is possible for sure.
Yeah, and it would also make sense that you have a lot of premium versions where you first in line always and all that, especially in the first, let's say, 5 years of this.
Yeah,
this
sure.
thing.
Same as airlines, skip the line and yeah.
And certain preferences, they might even be able to provide certain things in the vehicle, like drinks and food, for example, that's in line with your preference eventually.
It'll just hop over to Moët Chandon, put a bottle inside, some water.
That's right.
What I would like to do is also, like, if you're sitting in the car, your time's going to be spent very differently, right? So now you're still like looking at the wheel. At least in Europe, you have to still hold it as well.
I hope you're looking at the road, not the wheel.
Sorry, at the road and the wheel sometimes. Where is it? But I think it will change completely. Like I said to my girlfriend as well, when we went on vacation, we left like early morning, came, I think, like in the night at our destination in Europe. And if there would be a Robotaxi, I would just say, let's hop on the Robotaxi at like 9 in the evening, sleep, and then next day. So it's going to change the dynamics of like travel through the roads very much. But also, what would you do with your time? And like if it's during the day, I a lot of the times jump in my car and then go for a business meeting, and I'm in the car for an hour. I would like to do work, or maybe like discuss with Grok, like I have some ideas. Can you make a list? I need to order some food. I don't know, so there's going to be a lot of opportunity there as well.
It'll give us a lot of more opportunity, I think, to spend time with friends and family that we maybe don't have today, because either it's, you have to drive yourself and you don't want to because it's tiring, or you just don't have time. If you're able to work in the vehicle, then you will have time, because you're just like we are now. We're sitting there. Why not be moving at the same time? And then getting to the point that you want to be, after the meeting's over. So it's going to restructure the whole way that people move around.
Yeah.
It's going to disrupt airlines. It's going to disrupt public transit. It's going to disrupt trains, not to mention Uber and taxi services.
Right, it's the biggest transition since electricity. If you think about the transition that the people had in electricity, how much of a change in your daily life that will have suddenly. You didn't have to go to bed at 7 p.m. because you could stay up, and many of these things were very revolutionary. So before electricity, it was even the case that people were sleeping in two parts in the night. So One, they start sleeping very early. Then in the middle of the night, they woke up to just chit chat with the neighbors and then go back to sleep again until it was light again. So that period was just very long.
Mm.
And you would never say that electricity would have disrupt such a normal habit, but many of our sort of normal habits in day-to-day life will be completely overhauled by all these opportunities that these technologies are going to bring.
And Jensen Huang of NVIDIA says that AI is so foundational, it's like electricity.
Yeah.
It's going to be infused into absolutely everything.
Everything,
Just like
yeah.
electricity is.
And
I think so as well.
That's a nice bombshell to end on.
And it's almost 150. Electricity is not so long time ago in this grand scheme of things. So that's the crazy thing.
Definitely.
Before we go there, Kees, I know we have to wrap up. So there's only one thing I would like to mention.
Okay.
So, like back in the days, you have this movie which is called "The Man Who Made America." I think Demian, we've discussed it a couple of times. And there's actually, I think it's Edison or somebody else who's going to be backed by JP Morgan, and they have a certain way to drive electricity, and everybody backs him, because he's the most smart guy in the world. And then somebody else comes along with a different solution for electricity, which is really going to be it, So I hope Elon is the latter and not the former. But it always trickles in my mind, like even if you have the most smart guy in this sense, also with FSD or whatever, it can always be that there's coming different technologies or whatever that takes over. But I think for now they're leading, so that's all good. But it always pops to my mind when
it's funny because I'm on the Wikipedia page of the electricity transition, and one of the topics is that electricity was the liberator of the woman because of all the machines, washing machines, centrifuge, fridge, all that. It was. Electrical housekeeping was apparently before, just after the First World War, a very big thing, and it was really being seen at the time as something that liberated women.
First feminist wave.
And humanoid robots will liberate humanity.
Humanity, exactly.
Choose your words carefully, not eliminate.
Right. Good point.
Okay.
I was hoping you wouldn't.
Slight difference.
Hey, we found a video.
Let's end on a positive note here.
Yeah, definitely. Let's liberate humanity.
Liberate. Sorry.
Let's liberate Cern. We've held him hostage for quite a while now. So
we found the video. So. We're gonna close off with this video. Thank you so much, Cern, for being here with us and taking the time. And I hope to invite you as a guest again in the coming 10 episodes, where we count down to the Robotaxi future. So for everyone, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for paying attention and having the patience. And let's close off with this video.
Fly me to the moon.
We find it?
C'est le temps de l'amour.